Hello, welcome back to our next lesson in the equations unit. So let's look at this do now. It's a multi-step equation. First, start with your parentheses. So let's do negative 4 over 3 times 5 over 3. So negative 4 over 3 times 5 over 3. And we get negative 20 over 9. Then we're going to do negative 4 over 3 times n, which is negative 4 over 3n. And we could bring down the 7 over 9, which equals negative 1. All right, now, we only have this negative 4 over 3n, so we could leave that alone. But we do have this negative 20 over 9 plus 7 over 9. Well, they're the same denominator, so we just do negative 20 plus 7, which is negative 13 over 9. You could also just type it in your calculator. You don't need to remember those rules for fractions. No worries. Just type it in the calculator, and we do get what I said. All right. Now, we are going to add 13 over 9 to both sides. We leave the variable term alone. Don't touch it at first. We were trying to get rid of the minus 13 over 9, so we added it. So negative 1 plus 13 over 9, that gets us 4 over 9. Now divide each side by negative 4 over 3, and we get n equals 4 over 9 divided by negative 4 over 3, we get negative 1 over 3. As our final answer. Alrighty, let's get into today's lesson. Today and tomorrow is going to be like a two-part lesson. Today we're going to learn how to solve linear equations where there's variables on both the left and right side. Tomorrow we're going to do the same thing, but we'll see a special case of what happens sometimes. All right. So, how do we solve multi-step equations? We first start by doing any distributing and any combining like terms on one side. Then we move the variables all to the left side if needed, and then we use inverse operations to isolate the variable. So, let's look at this beginner practice. The left side, there's nothing I could do. There's only two things there. There's no parentheses. I just leave it alone. But now on the right side, I could do negative 3 times n is negative 3n, and negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Now instead of minus 3, I'm going to add 3. Oh, okay, here. This is where we're starting something new. Okay. You should notice that we have an n on the left side and the right side, but you only want the variables on the left side. It could technically go on either side, but I'm just going to teach us that we're going to put the variables on the left side. So in order to do that, we have to bring the negative 3n to the left side. So instead of minus 3n, we are going to have to add 3n to both sides. So we get 36 plus 5 plus 3 is 8n equals. This goes away, and then we have our minus 12. Now instead of a positive 36, we are going to subtract 36 from both sides. And we get 8n equals negative 12 plus negative 36, or just negative 12 minus 36. We get negative 48. Then divide each side by 8. We get n equals negative 6. All right, that is our first equation with variables on both sides. Let's look at the next one. This is intermediate practice. This one's just a little bit more work because we have distributive property on both sides. So let's look at it. 6 times 1 is 6, and 6 times n is 6n. On the next side, leave the 8n alone. Then negative 3 times n is negative 3n, And negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21. Okay. Now I want to combine like terms. 8n minus 3n is 5n plus 21. Now to bring the 5n to the next side, we are going to subtract 5n on both sides. We get 6 plus 1n equals 21. That's good because now we got the variables on the left side. To get the numbers on the right side, we need to get rid of that 6. So we're going to subtract 6. And this time I have 1n equals 15. You could divide by 1, but it's not going to change the answer, so you just get n equals 15. All right, now let's try the expert practice. This is the hardest it could really get. I guess this is hard because we have fractions, but it's not really hard when we have a calculator. So we have 7 over 3 times 1 over 2 gives us 7 over 6v minus 7 over 3 times 10 over 3. It's negative 10 over 3, which gives us negative 70 over 9. Alright, now I want only my v's on the left side, which means I need to get rid of the negative 1/2 v on the right side. So to do that, I could add that to both sides. And I get 7 over 6 plus 1 over 2 gives me 5 over 3v minus 70 over 9 equals negative 35 over 3. All right, now to get rid of minus 70 over 9, I'm going to add that to both sides. I get 5 over 3v equals negative 35 over 3 plus 70 over 9. I get negative 35 over 9. Now I still need to get v by itself, so I'm going to divide each side by 5 over 3. And I would get v equals I get negative 7 over 3. This one's very hard for me to know if the answer is correct or not because of how many letters I have, how many fractions I had, so I actually want to check this. I'm going to tell my calculator that negative 7 over 3, I'm going to store that for v. Okay, now I can type in the one side, 7 over 3, parentheses, 1/2 v minus 10 over 3. I get that on one side, and now let's look at what I get on the other side. In our calculator in school, you can just type both sides in, and then it will tell you true or false. They are both the same thing, so that is the correct answer. Alrighty. Now, let's look at individual practice. Try this. Try this. Pick. Are you more beginner or intermediate? Do a problem. Alright, left side, leave it alone. 4n minus 40. Now on the right side, 7 times negative 2n is negative 14n. 7 times 2 is 14. Now we want n only on the left side, so we are going to bring that negative 14 over. To do that, we are going to add 14n to both sides. Then we get 18n minus 40 equals 14. Now let's add 40 to both sides. And we get 18n equals 54. Divided by 18, we get n equals 3. Alrighty. Now let's look at the intermediate practice, which could just be a little bit more complicated because we have more things to combine on one side. Bring down the 2p, and now we have a minus 1. Negative 1 times 8p is negative 8p, and negative 1 times 3 is positive 3. Okay? Now we have negative 3 times 5, which is negative 15, and negative 3 times p is negative 3p. Alright, we still have to combine on that left side. So 2p minus 8p is negative 6p plus 3 equals negative 15 minus 3p. Now to get rid of the minus 3p, we're going to add 3p to both sides. And then we get negative 3p plus 3 equals negative 15. Now to get rid of that positive 3, we're going to subtract 3 on both sides. So we get negative 3p equals negative 18. Divide by negative 3. We get p equals 6. Perfect. All right. Now let's look at this error analysis question. There's an error, and let's see. First, I'm going to start by not even looking at what the student did, and I'm just going to do it myself. I want to bring this 5x to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. I then get 5. 3x minus 5x is negative 2x equals negative 19. Now, please know you could also move the variable to the right side if you wanted, so it's not incorrect if you do that. That's just not how we're going to do it. Now, to get rid of the 5, we're going to subtract 5 on both sides. So we get negative 2x equals negative 24. Then we divide by negative 2, and we have x equals 12. Which is not the answer that the other person got. Let's see their steps. They decided to subtract the negative 3x, so they brought it to the other side. That's okay. So then 5x minus 3x is 2x. That's correct. Then they added the 19 to bring it to the other side. Just a little bit different way than we do it. And they ended up with 24 equals 2x. That means they need to get rid of the 2 to get the x by itself. So they would need to multiply by 2. Divide by 2, I meant. Which 24 divided by 2 should have got them 12. So their mistake was always the number attached to x is the number that you're putting at the bottom that you're dividing by. The number next to x is the number that you should see twice. You should see the 2 being divided twice. So explain the step the student made. The student should have divided by 2 to get 2x, 2x. All right. Let's look at this longer regions question. It's just longer because there's more combining like terms and distributive property. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is 3 minus 5x. Then we have 12. There's a negative 1 here. Negative 1 times 6x is negative 6x. And negative 1 times 7 is positive 7. All right. Now I see 3 things on each side, which means I'm definitely going to have to combine like terms. 3x minus 5x is negative 2x plus 3. 12 plus 7 is 19 minus 6x. All right. Now, I like to get the variables on the left side, so I'm going to get rid of this 6x by adding it. That would give me positive 4x plus 3 equals 19. Now, to get rid of the 19, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. And 19 minus 3 is 16. Divide by 4, x equals 4. Alrighty, and now you can go back with your calculator and check any of the previous ones that we did to make sure our answer is correct. But But that is how we solve multi-step equations that have variables on both sides. Tomorrow we are also going to learn how to solve equations with variables on both sides, but there will be a special case that happens. All right, that wraps up our lesson.